Okay, first of all, let's talk about Maggie, because I have a lot. I have a lot to say about that whole thing. I understand what they're trying to do because, oh my God, because everybody seemed to be okay with Maggie's decision to let that poor kid die. Everybody seemed to be okay with it at the end, but I am not. I'm not okay with it for a whole variety of reasons. First of all, since when do we let people die? Since when do we leave people behind? I don't understand. I mean, this is not who we are. And everybody was just going along with Maggie besides Alden. Everybody else was okay with this. I mean, Gabe had no problem. Obviously, Negan had a problem with it, but he stepped aside because, understandably, he stepped aside because Maggie is ready to kill him at any moment, and so is everybody else. So we're just going to condemn this kid to death because he was scared and he ran off. And are we as the audience supposed to think it's okay because it's Gabe who, or not Gabe, Gage, I think, who was one of the kids who was picking on Lydia? So are we supposed to think, well, the kid's an asshole, so he got what was coming to him? Because I don't think that's true. And I can't imagine the show thinking that that's true at this point. And yet, apparently the show does now think that that's okay. The narrative that they're telling in this episode, I know I'm all over the place, but the narrative that they're telling in this episode, Maggie's reasoning is, and everybody's reasoning apparently, is that he took off, which makes him a coward. He's a kid. He's a kid. Yes, he stole their supplies. How did all these badasses, including Daryl, all these badasses, Maggie, hello, didn't notice that these two people took off and stole their supplies? Okay, so that's kind of on you. I'm sorry. That's kind of on you that you didn't even notice. And then this is a scared kid, and there's plenty of time to save him. Now, I guess once they opened that door, they wouldn't be able to get it closed in time, I guess. I still think that you try. I think that you try, and I think that all of those people can probably take out those walkers. And yes, it's going to expend energy and ammo, but this is who we are, isn't it? I just don't understand. And then Maggie tells this story. So Alden is like, oh, it's the worst way to die, being torn apart by zombies. I guess maybe he died before he was torn apart. It was hard to tell if he was really dead or not, but the kid stabbed himself in the heart. And when I saw him with the fingerless gloves and the knives, I was like, oh, this is the kid whose arm gets bit, because somebody in the trailer got their arm bit. But Maggie's like, no, that's not the worst way to die. And then she tells this completely irrelevant story, which, that scene was great. That scene was haunting, terrifying. I loved the way that it was shot. I loved the way that it was lit. All of it was wonderful. I loved the way that Maggie was lit, particularly in that shot. It was really, affecting, but I couldn't get over what had just happened. And apparently this story that she's telling makes everybody okay with what they just did to Gage. And I don't understand, because it's not the same thing. Just because there are worse ways to die than being torn apart by zombies. I mean, that's a pretty fucking terrible way to die. But who cares if that's not the worst way to die? It's still pretty fucking shitty. And we're supposed to just be like, oh, well, okay then. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm just saying that I understand what they're trying. They're trying to portray Maggie as being pragmatic and also that she's gotten a little cold. And that's fine. But maybe shoot it differently so she doesn't look like a heartless asshole. And the fact that everybody else was just on board besides Alden and Negan, I mean, it makes, these people are supposed to be our heroes, but in that scene, they were villains. And as far as I'm concerned, everybody but Alden and Negan in that scene were villains. And that's not what I want. And I guarantee you that Daryl Dixon would not have left that kid to die. That wouldn't have happened if he were there. I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons why they separated Daryl. Like, the writers wanted to separate Daryl from the group because they knew that there's no way that he would allow that. But, yeah, it just makes me think really badly about that group of people. Like, what the actual fuck? And like I said, if it was somebody in the main cast who was there, if it was somebody that Maggie cared about in particular, they would have risked their lives and their ammo and everything to save this person. And so I just really didn't like anything. I didn't like what that was saying about Maggie. I didn't like what it's saying about the show. Like, none of that. I don't like what it's saying about the other people, other members of that group. And like I said, the fact that she tells this completely irrelevant story that, while good, it's a good story, it's a good scene, it's a creepy story, it's horrifying. But how does that make what they just did okay? It doesn't even make any sense. So I have a lot of problems with it. And then I also had, so I thought it was great that Maggie handed Negan a gun, right? And maybe it's progress. Like, okay. because I loved when Maggie, says, like, I tripped and he left me to die, and Negan's just like, yep, that's what happened. You know what I mean? Because no, I don't think that he's under any obligation to save Maggie. You know what I mean? Like, somebody who is actively trying to kill him, or indirectly trying to kill him and actively talking about killing him. Anyway, it's a little different than just some random kid. But I loved that moment when he was just like, just completely honest about it. Like, yeah, that's what happened. But she gives him a gun, and I'm like, okay, well, she's trusting him with the gun. That's progress. And then he gives her the gun back, and I'm like, cool. But then he, like, holds on to it for just a little too long. And I'm like, why? Why did they have to play that beat? Like, why did they have to do that? Let's just, like, there was some progress there. They seemed to have come to some kind of understanding. I don't know how, but I understand that's what the show is trying to tell me, is that this is, they're gradually coming to some kind of uneasy truce, some kind of understanding. But then he holds on to the gun for that one extra beat, and I'm just like, why with the antagonism? I didn't like that either. Once again, I thought the episode was really gorgeous. I really liked all of the set pieces. I loved, the subway car and the walker's hands and the windows. So good, so atmospheric. But I don't understand why they didn't just run over the top. I don't get it. Is there maybe not enough space for them to stand up or crawl even? If that's the case, I would like that to be kind of pointed out, because the whole time I'm just like, why aren't they above it? Why are they going through? And I especially loved all the stuff with Daryl. It was all so gorgeous. I mean, it's kind of crazy that just like he's just crawling through a sewer, and it's stunning. Like, there were so many beautiful shots. And I loved all of the imagery that he came across in the tunnel with, you know, like all the graffiti of the royalty being, you know, at the top and then they're at the bottom and then they're being torn apart, that sort of thing. And it's telling you a story. I was trying to figure out when Daryl was looking at this stuff, I was trying to figure out if this was telling a story of something that happened like after the fall, like how recent is this graffiti is what I was trying to figure out. I just really liked the set piece there and the imagery and everything. I do think that dog needs a leash. I really do. But because I thought that was going to lead somewhere. You know, I thought dog was running off for a particular reason, and maybe he did. Maybe we'll find out that he was lured, because I thought that he was lured by Leah. That's what I thought. I thought I wondered if maybe he caught Leah's scent or even Connie's scent. Maybe Connie was down there. But what I really thought was that he was being lured by Leah. But now I think that they were really just trying to get Daryl out of that situation so he wouldn't be present when Maggie decided to let that kid die. That's what I think they were trying to do, because he just ends up meeting back up with the group and he doesn't discover any new information. He doesn't meet anybody. Like, nothing actually happens. It's all really visually interesting and beautiful. I love the way all of that looked, but there was actually no point to it unless that note that he found comes up later. But even so, he could have found that while they were still together. You didn't need to separate Daryl for him to find that note. So I think that that's why they separated him, because he just wouldn't allow that to happen on that subway car. So I think that's why they were trying to separate him from the group. So it didn't feel manufactured in the moment when I was watching it, but now thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that feels really manufactured. The episode was pretty slow in general. I mean, really nothing happened. Besides, like, the A story seemed to be Maggie and that group. The B story was Eugene and that group at the Commonwealth, and then Daryl was kind of the C story. And the only story that anything happened in, really, was the B story, which is weird. Because I don't think that was the A plot. But anyway, oh, I should talk about that fucking badass scene. So, okay, I was a little ticked off because, you know, like, you saw how easily they were able to take out all those zombies. After they let that kid die, they just easily, I mean, not easily, but yeah, pretty easily took out all those zombies. And so I was kind of ticked off when I was watching it. So I couldn't really enjoy it as much as I would have liked to. But Daryl showing up like a literal fucking video game character, like that shot with him from the outside looking in the subway car as he's moving through the car, shooting zombies in the head, like, it was so fucking cool. So fucking cool. But, like, it just reinforced the fact that, yeah, they could save this kid. Like, they could have saved that kid. And I know Daryl is a beast, but there were so many people, you know what I mean? Like, there were so many people there. They could have taken out all those walkers. And so it's annoying, but I just really, really appreciate Daryl just sweeping through the train car and just handling the situation. So fucking badass. Yes, I'm a Daryl fangirl. I don't care. It's awesome. He's so cool. I love him. And, yeah. And then the grenade, that was, I mean, that was a little over the top, but I loved it. So I was very, very happy with that set piece. That was some good action. And then, of course, they end up out of the subway tunnel, and we didn't actually see them make it out, but they get out, and then they're walking down this street lined with hanging bodies. And I'm just thinking, you might want to get the fuck out of here because you know it's the Reapers. And sure enough, that poor guy, conveniently it was the guy who was already like probably fatally injured. But he gets the axle treatment. Just boom, right in the head. But I guess that's gonna set up it looks like that's gonna set up some really interesting action for next episode. So pretty excited about it. Wonder who we're gonna lose. Okay, so now let's talk about Eugene. I was so proud of Eugene for convincingly lying. He did such a great job. He was telling a lot of it was true, but a lot of it was not. And I was just so proud of him for doing a good job. And that was really actually very, very tense. The whole thing was really tense because when Princess goes off to the restroom and then that stormtrooper follows her, I was very, very concerned. And it ends up being okay. So they're in, and I'm hoping that we get to see the Commonwealth next episode, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like. And I really hope that is Stephanie, and it works out for him because he deserves it. He was breaking my heart. I know that Eugene hasn't always made the best choices, and he is a bit of a coward, but I think he's proven himself. He's incredibly valuable. I think Eugene is one of the most valuable members of our entire society, like Alexandria, like all of the communities that we used to have. Alexandria, Hilltop, the Kingdom. Like, I think Eugene is one of the most valuable members of that society because he has so much knowledge and he is really very capable in his own way. I mean, he has survived all this time not being a great fighter and not always making the most ethical, the most moral decisions. But I mean, you gotta hand it to him. He's a survivor. And so I just have a big soft spot for Eugene, and he was just breaking my heart, just like sweating and shaking and everything. And so I was so proud of him when he bluffed the red stormtrooper. I guess his character's name is Mercer. I don't think that they've said it in the show, but I believe that that's his name. And I also loved Yumiko. We haven't given Yumiko a lot of attention. I've always thought she was a pretty good character, but we didn't know much about her. I loved her taking charge and reading the room and knowing who these people are. Like, she had their number, and I was just like super impressed. I think she's great, and I love that whole group. I love Ezekiel. He's one of my favorites, and Princess has become one of my favorites, and I've got this big, soft spot for Eugene, and now I'm really loving Yumiko. And I guess I misunderstood because I thought it was her sister who had left that note, but I guess it's her brother. So her having a relative, like running into her brother, like that seemed like too big of a coincidence, but I guess if they are from that sort of general area, then that does make sense. So I'm really looking forward to next episode. This one was a little slow. There was some really solid, I think, some really good character work. Some really good character work with some of the characters, but then some really bad character work with some of the characters. So it's a little uneven and a little slow, but I'm very, very excited. I think we're going to have a really cool confrontation with the Reapers, and we're going to get to see the Commonwealth, hopefully. So I'm excited. So I guess that's it. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.